On the phone live from Cairo, Egypt, actually on the banks of the Nile. Max Blumenthal, welcome to the program, Max.
Great to be back on with you.
So, Max, give us now. How long have you been in Egypt?
I've been here for 2 weeks, and actually, the original plan was to go after 1 week to the Gaza Strip, but I can't seem to get my permission authorized. I've been obstructed by the bureaucracy here, and I thought in the new Egypt, the post-revolutionary Egypt, the administration wouldn't participate in the siege of Gaza as it had in the past under Mubarak, but they still are. And so I've, managed to have a pretty interesting time covering the events here, and Egypt is still in a revolutionary moment.
Yeah, all right. Well, actually, I would love to talk to you about their disposition in terms of what's happening in Gaza. But let's take us back here. Now, over the past 2 weeks, we've seen massive pushback against Morsi's. I don't know what else to call it. I guess massive power grab. Just give us a sense. Somewhat chronologically, if you could, as to what you've been seeing and what's happening there and what's about to happen in the next couple of days.
When I arrived, the night I arrived, I walked out of my apartment in Garden City and was overcome by tear gas. There were basically riots outside the American embassy, which is now surrounded by concrete walls and state security. The instability moves from neighborhood to neighborhood, from area to area. Right now, it's really quiet. And the trigger point was President Mohamed Morsi's decree giving him unlimited power over the judiciary, and then the emergence of a draft constitution, basically the new constitution of post-revolutionary Egypt, that was basically drawn up only by the Muslim Brotherhood and its Salafist allies. It's an extremely divisive document that limits women's and minority rights, that now gives the military the power to arrest citizens, including for insulting a military officer, which is part of Morsi's deal to keep the military in its supreme position, to basically preserve the deep state and preserve the Muslim Brotherhood's political dominance. And so what basically has happened is, by taking, Morsi won 51% of the vote in an election against a figure who was aligned with the old regime, with the Mubarak regime, Shafiq. And many Egyptians felt like they had no good choice in the election. I think a lot of liberals in the U.S. can relate to that. Except this is actually an even more divided society. And many people, including liberals in Egypt, cast their lot with Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood, with Islamists, because they thought this was at least a better alternative to the old regime and to the military. They thought, this would allow the revolution to at least proceed. And what wound up happening was that Morsi has left them completely out in the cold, drafting a constitution that doesn't take into account all these other political forces in Egypt. And so you have millions of people who feel left out, and they've taken to the streets. And on Saturday, the country is supposed to vote on the Constitution through a constitutional referendum. In a referendum, usually the yes side wins. That's just the way it has traditionally gone. And the Muslim Brotherhood has an unparalleled political machine. Right. They've instilled discipline in their members that's even, exceeds that of the Christian right in the U.S. So the opposition kind of expects to lose. And that's why you see these street protests. It's why we're seeing periodic violence. I witnessed the most intense street clashes I've ever seen in my life outside the presidential palace last Wednesday. The presidential palace has become ground zero for protest. Its walls are covered in graffiti. This is a powerful symbol of the delegitimization of, or the illegitimacy of Morsi in the eyes of many Egyptians. And outside my hotel 3 nights ago, there were street clashes. Basically, I watched guys shoot at each other and attack each other with batons from my balcony. There's a really nice alarm clock at 4 in the morning. And this is a block from Tahrir Square. So anything can happen between now and Saturday when the vote takes place.
And so now, just stepping back for a moment, at one point now, Morsi assumed certain basically executive authorities, and then ostensibly reversed himself, but maintained the decisions he had already made under that authority. So basically, the damage was done in terms of delegitimizing and basically draining the courts of their power. Where does that stand? Is that still basically status quo from where it was, I guess, a week and a half ago now?
Yeah, definitely. And by kind of shifting position and bringing a few of the more mealy-mouthed opposition figures into the dialogue, he's weakened the opposition, but at the same time, he's co-opted the military by giving them the power to arrest citizens and preserving them in a role that kind of exists above the state. He's supposed to be the commander-in-chief of the military. So I think, I'm sorry, there's a loud boat going by.
No, it sounds fine.
I think that that the opposition's anger has deepened because of what he's done with the Constitution. The Egyptian Judges Club, which presides over the polling places, the 13,000 polling places where Egyptians will vote on Saturday, is refusing to participate in the referendum. So only about 7,000 judges, these are like poll watchers, will be able to participate. So I don't even know how the vote will take place. And beyond that, there's an article in the Constitution that everyone in Egypt agrees that that Sharia should be the influence the way laws are made. It's just sort of like Judeo-Christian influence over laws in the 18th century when the founding fathers drew up the Declaration of Independence, to the extent that they had any. But there's always been a mosque called the Al-Azhar Mosque, which is a 1,000-year-old institution which has unparalleled expertise in interpreting Sharia law into the Egyptian legal canon, and their power has basically been stripped by the Constitution, and the Brotherhood and its Salafist allies are basically giving anyone the power to interpret Sharia into the Egyptian legal canon. So you even have Islamic elements in Egypt. The old Islamic establishment is up in arms about the Constitution. It's not just civilian judges.
So give us a sense of who the opposition is and how it's changed. You have a piece in NSFW Corp, which we will link to on the Majority FM site. But give us a sense, because one of the things that seems to be, or at least that your reporting suggests, is that the latest moves by Morsi have activated a different sector of Egyptian society than we have at least heretofore seen be active in this sense.
Yeah, that's a great question. And right now the opposition is like the Star Wars bar. It's like a bunch of people a bunch of forces and elements who are united by little more than their resentment, loathing, and suspicion of Mohammed Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood. So the most visible faction of the opposition is the National Salvation Front, who I profiled, and their most well-known figure is Mohammed el-Baradei, who we all know is the former head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, who was trying to get inspections in Iraq and, battling with George W. Bush. And he, won a lot of credibility in Egypt as a result of his international renown. And there are other figures in this coalition who range from center to liberal to the Nasserist left. And then you have all these people who were loyalists of the old regime. You have the upper middle class in Egypt who are suspicious of the Tahrir Square revolutionaries, who saw them as foreign agents. And you have lower class nationalists and all these people who just reject the Muslim Brotherhood's vision for Egypt and exist outside of the Brotherhood's moral framework. And they're suddenly joining these protests that we're seeing. Many of them are known sort of derisively as fulul in Egypt. That word kind of signals old regime loyalists. And so you have people going out. Where I am right now is an island called Zamalek in Cairo. It's surrounded by the Nile, and it's sort of a bastion of wealth and the upper middle class. It's very cosmopolitan. And half of the island is taken up by a club called the Gezira Club. And it's sort of a private sports club where the elite hang out. And they've been marching from the Gezira Club to Tahrir Square in the presidential palace every week, these well-coiffed people. And they've actually asked for instructions on how to protest because they've never been in protest before. So what you have is the old Tahrir Square left-wing revolutionaries in a coalition with people who, many of whom wished death upon them back in January 2011. It's a very weird moment.
So, I mean, on balance, I mean, clearly the Muslim Brotherhood has been an entity in Egypt for 100 years, and or give or take. And though they were outlawed, they clearly, obviously, had an organizational structure, which is where a lot of their power comes from when you're talking about a referendum. Is there a sense that the opposition, if it were to be able to coalesce and organize, and obviously it's not going to happen in the next 2 days, but is the opposition in and of itself strong enough ultimately to at least provide some check on what Morsi will do, or is this just sort of like he's slowly building the blocks here with the Constitution and whatnot to sort of to dampen that threat and to begin to sort of just cleave off different elements of that opposition?
Well, starting with the Brotherhood, there was a piece I saw in, I think, Foreign Affairs or Foreign Policy about how they're comprised of people who are, quote-unquote, high modernists. Basically, they're the sons of the rural poor who have emerged as engineers and doctors and businessmen, and they see themselves as, the people who should have the sole right to implement the reforms in a technocratic manner that Egypt needs. And I sort of don't agree with this analysis. I think what really defines the Muslim Brotherhood is the fact that they have been organizing for this moment for 50 or 60 years, and that they've, been horribly repressed. Their members have been tortured and imprisoned, and they've implemented a sort of hierarchical structure that was once an underground structure, and that kind of structure is what we're seeing through the government of Mohamed Morsi, who is really seen as a stooge or an empty suit of Shatter, who is the deputy of the supreme guide of the Muslim Brotherhood. He's a multimillionaire businessman, and he's really calling the shots. So Morsi has all these advisors, and they're all quitting because they're not advising. He's basically taking orders through a hierarchical structure of a former underground movement. And beyond that, what the opposition is horribly disorganized, as you said, and that created a fear that the army could step in at any moment and reimpose order, which would be a terrible prospect for Egypt's revolution. It would basically end Egyptian democracy. And there is an element in the opposition known as the ultras. They are basically football hooligans who have no politics except that they hate cops. And they've been attacking Muslim Brotherhood offices, the Freedom and Justice Party offices, up and down the country. And I think that the reason they're doing this, in my view, will probably be confirmed by some interviews in the next day or two, that they are trying to create enough instability to provoke a junior officers coup, to basically bring back the army, end Egyptian democracy, but also end the rule of the Muslim Brotherhood. Finally, I think what we're witnessing is a discrediting of political Islam as a force of national renewal, and that it will just have to proceed for days and years beyond December 15th before common Egyptians see that, contrary to the Muslim Brotherhood's slogan, "Islam is the answer," a new form of politics which incorporates Islam but also incorporates a sort of democratic the democratic culture that's brewing in the streets of Egypt is the real answer to the situation here.
Do you think that this, I mean, assuming that the ultras are doing this as a way of creating some sense of instability to introduce the military, is the idea that if the military does take over or exits this coalition with the Muslim Brotherhood being bought off by, sort of I guess, more respect within the context of the Morsi government. In the event that takes place, is there a sense that it's an easier path to democracy if the military actually stages a coup, because it will give time for the opposition to organize and to sort of coalesce? Or is this let me ask, is that a widely held belief, or are people wrestling with that idea, or what?
I think there are people in the opposition elements that would like to see the army reimpose some kind of order. I mean, the economy's struggling right now badly because of the instability. But I don't think that the controlled elements of the opposition, like the National Salvation Front, would want anything to do with that. And so that's why the National Salvation Front has basically called off its boycott and is campaigning now for a no vote against the referendum, because by boycotting and calling for escalation, they've been using this language of escalation in the streets that only intensifies the instability and the violence, and threatens to provoke the army to reimpose order. And I mentioned earlier in this interview that Morsi has authorized the army to arrest citizens.
Right.
This is just a way of mollifying the army and bringing them into Morsi's camp. I think this is the long game of the Brotherhood, is to win the sympathy of the army. But it's sort of ironic because they have traditionally, been the victims of army repression.
Now, where's the U.S. in this? Because to the extent that the United States has any sort of deep-seated ties to any element of Egyptian society, it would be the military. And people should know, just as a little background, that the military in Egypt is also one of the biggest players in the economy, because they own a lot of a lot of industry,
right,
and in the hotels, and they're involved in a lot of industry in Egypt, and also there's simply deep-seated ties between the U.S. military and the Egyptian military. Much of our aid goes sort of into the economy in Egypt via the military. So where's the U.S. in this?
That's the big question, and clearly, I mean, the U.S. is always going to be in bed with the military. They give billions to the Egyptian military, basically, to keep the peace with Israel. The only policy that really defines the United States in the Middle East is doing everything it can to protect Israel. And so you have them pumping billions into this corrupt institution, which, as you said, controls 1/3 of the country. And putting money in the hands of sort of an untouchable elite that exists above the state. At the same time, there are people in the opposition, liberals and leftists, who believe that the U.S. is propping up Morsi and that the U.S. has a long game of backing the Islamist strong horse here. And so there's a lot of resentment among the opposition against the U.S. And I walk around telling people I'm from Spain or Germany because, the resentment in the streets is so profound.
What do you think about the rationale behind that? I mean, do you think it's possible that the U.S. is playing that game just because they don't?
No doubt. There's no doubt that just look at the timing of the constitutional decree. It was the day after Morsi was delegated.
Oh, are you there?
Got sort of carte blanche from the U.S. to act as he wanted domestically in exchange for keeping the peace with Israel. And the U.S. was clearly reluctant to criticize Morsi, and there's actually very little they can say against him anyway, because if you look at the way that the Bahraini government is cracking down on its opposition, and the statements that Hillary Clinton in the U.S. has issued, where they just basically blame both sides, there's very little precedent from the U.S. side for criticizing what Morsi's doing, who is still, despite everything, an elected leader.
So tie it back to what you had mentioned at the beginning of the interview, the difficulty getting from Egypt to Gaza may very well be a function of this new relationship between the United States and Morsi's government. That look, we have one major overriding interest, which is not whether or not what your Constitution says or whether the role of the military, but that you protect Israel's interests when it comes to particularly your border with Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key way that Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood and the rulers of the new Egypt can demonstrate their goodwill towards the U.S. is by participating in this, basically, most directly, by participating in the siege of Gaza, in Israel's siege of Gaza, and just being complicit in it. And we're seeing that by the isolation of journalists who seek to get there. But we're seeing it in many other ways. The Rafah crossing is still, is not as open as many people thought it would be. But there's another thing that I forgot to mention, which is the IMF loan. Morsi basically has been desperate to authorize this IMF loan that'll keep the state afloat, especially at a time of instability. And the U.S. is controlling the reins of the IMF. And so they demanded that Morsi 2 days ago raise taxes on everything from cigarettes and tobacco. Egyptians love to smoke hookahs, beer, butane gas, petroleum, pretty much all the essentials of life. In order to get this loan, basically the IMF demanded massive austerity at a time when Morsi is going to the polls to vote for where Egyptians will basically decide the political future of the Muslim Brotherhood and its constitution. And Morsi had to cancel those taxes because it was too politically perilous for him. So he's lost the loan so far. And so this is another angle that the U.S. can play and that the international community is playing. They're bullying Morsi and into punishing the common people of Egypt with his political future hanging over his head.
Now, getting back to this referendum, you said that there's about half the judges from the judges union, I guess, basically saying we're going to boycott this. Is the idea? Is there a twofold? It seems to me there's from what you're telling us. There's a twofold strategy. One is where some elements of the opposition are going to vote or trying to organize a vote against no, and then another part of the opposition is trying to delegitimize the vote so that this inevitable outcome will still be in some ways on less, I guess, firm ground.
And 90% of those judges won't participate. There are other judicial elements that will participate, but it's still a question whether there will be enough legal experts to make this a valid referendum, to make the vote valid. And I think that's like a caveat that the opposition has, or sort of a loophole they have for getting out of the vote even after they have canceled the boycott and are campaigning actively around the country for a no vote. We'll just have to wait until Saturday, and I think Saturday will be a bizarre day here, an unpredictable day. And honestly, I guess I don't have my ear close enough to the ground to issue any reliable predictions, but it seems, from my experience watching politics in the U.S. and around the world, I've never seen anything like this before.
Do you have a sense of what the opposition is planning in the event that they do that the Constitution is approved?
No, but this will. I mean, depending on the margin it's approved by, it could be a devastating moment for the forces. The language that Morsi and his advisors are using is that a very small but highly influential elite is provoking instability around Egypt, and that they have no real grassroots base like the Brotherhood does. And that if that view is validated, the opposition will kind of fragment and return to and some elements will move into irrelevance. But I think that their numbers are much larger than the Brotherhood predicts that they are, and the conventional wisdom here is that they'll get demolished at the polls, but I don't actually see that happening. I think there's a lot of anger at Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood, and that the way he's handled this constitution is politically self-destructive because of his exclusivist mindset, his failure to include more factions in Egypt, and his inability to forge ties with anyone who isn't in line with the Brotherhood's narrow ideology.
All right. Well, Max, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. It's been fascinating to hear your reporting, and we will point anybody to anything that you write. In the wake of this, we've of course got it on our site right now. What you've written at nsfwcorp.com. Max, thanks so much, and good luck with all your work in Egypt.